There are about 100 different fancy knife cuts, and honestly, you don't need to know any of them, but let me show you what you do need to know. Placing the knife down, and then we scoot for safety. I promise you do not need to know what a brunoise is to make dinner and feed your family. You just don't. Because if you follow these 3 rules, you can literally cut any vegetable for any dish. And that is a pinky promise. Before we get into that, it's important that you know how to hold your knife. So starting with an open hand, we're gonna go ahead and pinch the spine of our blade between our index finger and our thumb, like so. Then all you need to do is just go ahead and wrap those other 3 fingers around and you're set. For our opposite hand, we're gonna make sure we're doing a claw spider grip thing. That way we do not cut any of our fingertips off. Now for rule number 1, even cuts. Now this is one of our most simple rules, but also one of our most important rules, because it would be extremely disappointing if you were to bite into, say, a potato wedge, and one of them is cooked perfectly and the other one is still rock solid inside. You see what I mean? That's why when you're cutting your vegetable, you wanna take your time and make sure you're cutting them evenly. And to showcase that, we'll start with our carrots. Now I'm just gonna preface this for all of our vegetables. Anything that you can peel, you're more than welcome to peel. But I washed all these and I'm not gonna peel them, so do with it how you may. Is that the phrase? That's not the phrase. Do with that what you will? I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna start by cutting our carrot into oblong discs, which is like a regular disc or a coin, but we're gonna go oblong, like a funky frisbee. Now all we have to do for that is make sure that our carrot is nice and squared up, but our knife is gonna come in at an angle. This is gonna give our carrots a nice disc shape, but also a little more surface area. And as you can see, we maintain a relatively even thickness, which means these are gonna cook nice and even. Now for our celery, we're gonna start by peeling back a single piece of celery, then we'll cut off the top, as well as that dirty bottom. And now from here, we wanna make sure our celery and our knife are at a nice 90-degree angle, and then we can cut. Nice, consistent slices. And now onto our potato. Now today we're gonna cut this into 2 different cuts, but both of them start by slicing a thin layer off the bottom, just so it has a nice place to sit without wobbling. Then from here, we're gonna go ahead and cut straight down into about 1/4 inch thick slices. See, nice and even. Then we'll just lay that flat. And again, we're gonna cut straight down into about 1/4 inch thick slices. And from there, we're left with beautiful French fries. But if you take those French fries, place them back down, again, cut them at a 90-degree angle into 1/4 inch size cubes, we're left with a nice even potato dice. And now for the one that I think has the most unnecessary waste, maybe the bell pepper. Now to cut this into strips, we're gonna start by slicing off the bottom, rotating, and slicing off the top. But do not toss these because they are still very usable. Now for your whole bell pepper, go ahead and slice it down the side, and we're just gonna open it up. Remove any internal guts and tap out any seeds. Then we'll just flip it over, and we'll go ahead and cut these into strips. And this is a great time to point out that I'm not always perfect, and that's okay. You don't have to be perfect to cut vegetables. Like, don't worry about it. Oh, and back to those bits that most people would discard, you can still cut up the butt and pop out the stem and cut it as well. And now for everybody's least favorite vegetable, broccoli. Now for this, I'm gonna show you how to cut the florets and also the stem, because you can still use the stem. I mean, it's just as gross as regular broccoli, but apparently some people like regular broccoli too, so it's there if you want to use it. We'll start by flipping it upside down, then taking our knife, and we're just going to gently cut away at these florets. They shouldn't take a lot of force to cut and should just fall right off. And just like that, you have beautiful, but still gross broccoli florets. But now I'm gonna show you how to cut up the stem, because again, we don't wanna waste anything. We're gonna start by laying it on its side, then we're just going to cut off the exterior all the way around. From there, I like to just cut off the tip as well as the butt nubbin, and then we can go ahead and just thinly slice the rest. Now you can totally leave it just like this, or you can take it one step further and cut them into strips. Personally, I think they're a little more manageable that way. But in general, I don't think that broccoli is manageable at all. So voila, boom shakalaka. Now before we get into rule number 2, I wanna take a brief moment to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. For as much as I enjoy cooking, I also understand that with a busy work or family schedule, it's not always feasible. And that's why I'm proud to introduce the sponsor of today's video, Cook Unity. Now for those of you who aren't aware, Cook Unity delivers restaurant quality prepared meals right to your doorstep for an incredible price. And these aren't just random generic meals. These are thoughtful recipes developed by incredible chefs like Esther Choi in her Korean beef quesadilla, or Ludo Levev with his flat iron steak with herb butter. And he has a Michelin star, by the way. But no matter what chef or recipe you go with, you are getting responsibly raised meats and fresh produce, none of which has ever been frozen. And for those of you who are gluten-free, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, low sodium, low carb, dairy-free, keto, or just looking to have a balanced meal for under 600 calories, they have options for you. With Cook Unity, there's no grocery shopping, no meal prep, and no never-ending cleanup. So if you want to save time and money and want something that's just going to fit into your schedule, visit cookunity.com/Fujimoto50 and use code Fujimoto50 at checkout for 50% off your first order. And thank you again to Cook Unity for sponsoring today's video. And now for rule number 2, we're gonna get a little bit more technical, but I believe in you. You got this. Cut for your cook. This just means that before you start cutting your vegetables, you want to think about how you're going to cook them, because depending on how you cook them, it'll probably change the way that you cut them. I said that like 6 times and it sounds confusing, but like I'm gonna put it here, right here. Just look at it right here. Great, we got it? Cool. It's a simple rule, but it's a kind of a tongue twister. It's not really a tongue twister. It just goes cut, cook, cut, 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 and it throws it out. I'm sorry. Starting with our onion. Now for our onion, we're gonna do 2 different cuts for 2 different styles of cook. So obviously we're just gonna cut it in half. And peel it. Don't forget to peel it, because that's also a step for both of them. For our first cut, I'm thinking saute. So you're tossing this into a pan, giving it a little bit of oil, tossing it around, cooking it, but still wanting a little bit of crunch. And for that, we want slices. But more specifically, we wanna cut our slices with the grain. And all that means is that we're gonna look at where our root is and where our tip is, and we're gonna cut from end to end. This way we break the least amount of cell walls within our onion, making sure that it still stays nice and crunchy and doesn't get too flaccid, for lack of better words. So we'll go ahead and just cut off that root, flick it away, and then sort of like a rainbow, we're just gonna cut our slices all the way around from end to end. And then once you get about 2/3 of the way through, you can go ahead and just flip your onion over on its side, and that way you don't run the risk of slipping and cutting your fingers. And now for our second cut, let's say we're throwing this into a soup. So you probably don't want long stringy bits of onion, and you do want it to cook down and kind of melt away into the soup. And for that, we want a nice dice. Now for that, we want to make sure we leave our root intact. And all we need to do is just peel off all the skin. And then from here, it's pretty similar motion to what we did for our first cut. We're gonna go ahead and cut all the way around our onion, but instead of cutting all the way through, we want to make sure we leave just a little bit intact so that way it doesn't fall apart. After that, you should be left with a sort of half bloomin' onion type deal. Then we're just gonna go ahead and rotate it, and we're gonna cut against our first cuts straight down. And that'll leave us with a nice dice. Oh my gosh, my eyes. There's so much onion juice everywhere right now. Oh my God. Oh, this sucks. I do it for you. Oh, gross. Next up is cauliflower. Now for cauliflower, there's really only 2 main ways that you're gonna need to cut this. The first one being into steaks, and the second one into florets. But either way, both start with chopping off the nub. Tear off any excess leaves still attached, and the first thing we're gonna start with is our steaks. All you have to do is take your knife, run it straight through, then take it again, and run it straight through again. And there we have cauliflower steak. Truthfully, I don't get the hype, but if you're into it, great, that's awesome, good for you. And now for the florets, it's pretty similar to what we did with our broccoli. We're just gonna lightly and carefully cut off the stems, and each piece should just fall right off. Now you have a piece that's great for grilling, as well as all these florets that you can either saute, or you can steam, or throw into a rice, or really whatever you wanna do. It's your choice, your choice. That was awkward. I'm sorry. I didn't know words to say. Next up, zucchini. Now for our first cut, let's pretend that you're grilling, or maybe that you're doing some at-home teppanyaki. You're gonna want nice thick slices of zucchini. And for that, we're gonna start by removing the top and the bottom of our zucchini. Then we're gonna very carefully cut it in half down the middle, and boom. If you're gonna grill zucchini, all you have to do is just cut it down the center. It's pretty simple. But let's say that you were gonna toss it into a stir fry, in which case, let's keep going. We're gonna take one of our zucchini halves, and we're gonna go and cut it down the sides. Similar to what we did with the potatoes, but a little bit thinner. Then from there, we can lay those out flat again, and go ahead and cut those one more time. Then we'll just gather all those up, line them up nice and straight, cut them in half. Then we have nice chunky batons, perfect for a stir fry. And now for our mushrooms. Now before we cut any of these, I wanna say that you can absolutely use the stems. That said, I find that the stems just work better when you rip them off and you put them into a stock. You can absolutely just cut them up and cook them down with the rest of your mushroom, depending on the mushroom. Sometimes they're a little bit tougher than others, so I generally feel always remove the stem, throw it in a freezer bag, and then throw it into a stock pot when you're making stock the next time. That's just what I do. But for our first cut, let's pretend that you're having a nice steak, maybe a little bit of chicken, and you want a nice hearty mushroom side. So you're roasting them. Great. All you need to do is set it down, cut once, rotate, cut again. Boom. And if you really want to be fancy with it, you can cut it into eighths, but it's up to you. Now let's say you're gonna make a pasta and you want some mushrooms on top. Great idea. With your mushroom flat, we're gonna go ahead and slice this into nice, thin, even slices, just like this. This will hold its shape inside a pasta sauce or a stir fry or really anything similar where you still want slices of mushroom in it and you don't want them to dwindle away. But if you're looking for them to dwindle away, let me show you how to do it. Starting the same way as we did for our sliced, we'll go ahead and thinly slice. From there, we'll form these into nice little stacks, and then we'll thinly slice them again. Then we're gonna very carefully rotate those stacks of matchstick mushrooms, and we will thinly slice them one more time into a nice dice. And from there, you'll be left with beautiful little mushrooms that'll melt away into any sauce. Next up, the tomato. Now, I personally think that tomatoes are the best example to show you rule number 2 because you just use them in so many different ways. For instance, if you're putting this into a sauce, you'd probably just cut it in half, cut those halves in half, and then just cube those up into nice large chunks. They're large and intact, but they'll cook down beautifully into a sauce. But if you were making a sandwich, you might want to cut them straight down the side to give yourself nice tomato slices. Admittedly, this is not a great tomato. I'm realizing that now, but still, same rules apply. But let's say that you were making a salsa, which is very different from both of those applications. Let me show you. We're gonna start by cutting the tip and the butt. Now from here, we're just gonna flip it over, cut it straight down, flip it on its side again, take our knife into that opening, and we're just going to cut in and around the insides. This is gonna hollow out our tomato, leaving us with the wet and gross inside bits and a nice dry outside bits because nobody likes a watery salsa. Then from there, you'll just lay this flat, cut this into nice thin strips. I really need to sharpen my knife. Tomatoes are a great test of whether your knife is sharp or not. If it's struggling to go through, your knife needs to be sharpened. Then we'll just stack up all those nice strips and we'll cut it up into a nice dice. And now we have the start of a nice salsa. Also, it's important that you know that none of these things are hard and fast rules. You don't have to exclusively cut your onion this way and you can't use that cut on your cucumber. You can do it however you want. As long as it is meeting those 3 rules, you're good to go. Which brings me to our 3rd rule, cut for how you eat. This rule is similar to rule number 2, but instead of thinking about how you're gonna cook it, you're gonna think about how you wanna eat this. Because at the end of the day, after all is said and done, that's the goal, to eat. So when you're deciding on how you cut things, go through those motions. Think about how are you going to cook it, and then how are you going to eat it? How are you going to enjoy it? Because if it's not enjoyable, then all that work you just did was for nothing. And that would suck. I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to waste your energy, and I certainly don't want you to waste your money or your food. So think about these things. And now we'll start with our garlic. Before you decide how to cut this, you're going to need to remove it from this skin. And personally, I find the best way to do it is just to lean on it and press. Granted, sometimes it shoots out, but it works every time. Now let's say that you wanted pops of garlic flavor throughout your dish. In that case, you may want to thinly slice it so that way you're getting full pieces of garlic in your bites. So we'll just go ahead and take our single piece of garlic here, and then we'll take our very sharp knife, and we are going to carefully thinly slice our garlic. That'll leave us with these nice slices of garlic that'll be a good pop in your bite. But what if you wanted that garlic flavor subtle and not so punchy in every bite? In that case, you may want to mince it so it kind of melds together with other flavors and whatever you're cooking. And for that, you don't even need to remove the skin. All you have to do is place it at the edge of your countertop, grab a bench scraper, and smash it. From there, the skin should just fall right off. Now you can take your knife and rock over it, and after a couple minutes, you'll be left with a garlic that is so fine that it'll just melt away into whatever you cook it in. And now for one of my favorite vegetables, green onions. Now when I'm cutting green onions, I generally think about 2 things. And it doesn't 100% apply like this because I understand that there are more things out there than these 2 things that I'm about to tell you. But for me, I think about, am I eating it with rice or am I eating it with noodles? That's just the way it is. If I'm eating it with rice, I'm gonna be cutting it smaller because it's with rice. But if I'm gonna be eating it with noodles, I'm gonna be wanting it longer. So let me show you the difference. And also you can cut it, it doesn't just have to be, you can switch, you can flip flop, but it's just what I prefer. Now for our shorter cuts, we're gonna be cutting them on a bias, similar to the way that we cut our carrots. We need to start with our knife at an angle, cut off those tips, and then we'll just carefully rock our knife through, slicing our green onion into thin but long slivers. Now personally, I think that something like this works better with something like rice than with noodles because whether it's a stir-fry noodle or a noodle soup dish, it's most likely just gonna clump together and then just not evenly disperse well. Versus on rice, you sprinkle it over and it just kind of stays in place. Just my opinion. But for our longer cuts, these ones are a little bit fancy, but also super easy to do. We're gonna cut off our tips. Then we're gonna cut our green onions into about 3-inch-ish long sections. 3 inches-ish. Now from here, it is a little more work because we're going to be slicing each one of these open and then laying them flat. Once you've built up a nice little stack, you're simply gonna hold it flat, make sure they're all unrolled, and we're gonna just cut these into thin little slivers. From there, we'll just move those thin slivers into a nice ice water bath, and we'll just let those hang out and chill. Then after a few minutes, you can go ahead and remove them, and you'll have these nice, curly green onions. See, aren't these fun? I like to think so. Next up, we have ginger, which if I'm being entirely honest, is one of my favorite things to cut, which sounds weird, but it is simply because of one reason, and you'll see that reason. Just wait for it. But first, we have to remove all of the skin. And to do that, you can use a knife, but you also could just use a spoon. You just scrape the sides, it removes the least amount of flesh and is a pretty easy thing to do. It's a great way to get your kids into cooking and not be worried about them like chopping their fingers off. Now for our first cut, let's pretend we're eating dumplings and we want something that's light and refreshing to kind of clear all that juicy richness. Well, in that case, we might want to go with matchsticks. And to do that, we'll just start by squaring off a nice little chunk here. Then we'll stand it upright, cut it into thin slices. Then we'll just lay those thin slices down flat and cut it into tiny, thin matchsticks. This will give us a nice prominent ginger flavor and texture as well. But if you were looking for something more subtle, then let me show you. Maybe you're making a sauce and you don't want your ginger to be, gingery inside there. You want a little subtle flavor, but you don't want chunks of ginger. Well, let me show you the easiest way. First, obviously, skin your ginger. Then we're just gonna cut this into thin discs. Now from there, we're gonna put our knife down off of our cutting board. Then we'll take our ginger, which is nice, thin, and flat. We'll lay it down just like that. And then we'll slap it with a pan. Beautiful. Now, as long as you slap it hard enough, your ginger should have basically just minced itself to death. It takes minimal effort. It does take a confident swing because if you don't swing confidently enough, it's not gonna do anything. But you run your knife through it a couple times, it breaks it up, and you're good to go. Confident swing. Not confident enough. There we go. It is so unnecessary and so extra, but I don't know, it's a fun thing to do, so why not? You also could just use a bench scraper, but that's a lot less fun. And technically speaking, it's a little bit harder because ginger's structure is a lot stronger than garlic, so it needs a lot more force behind it. So I'd recommend a small pot, but that's just me. Next up is our hunk of cabbage. Now, cabbage is one of my absolute favorite vegetables because it tastes like nothing and it adds a ton of volume. So it's really easy to switch out for your rice and drizzle with a little bit of sauce, and it serves its purpose. Which leads me to our first cut, which is a nice thin shred. And for that, which like any cabbage cut really, you're just gonna want to start by removing those outer leaves. Sorry, my voice, I'm a bit parched. Much better. Now, once those outer leaves are removed, we're just gonna go ahead and cut it down the center. Then we'll cut it in half one more time. And now from here, we're just gonna go ahead and cut out our core. Technically speaking, you don't have to do this, but I find it a lot easier because then I can just cut all the way through the cabbage versus having to like cut around the core. So, personal preference. Now we just need to make sure we are appropriately clawing our cabbage, bring our knife in, and we'll just thinly slice and shred. And this is one that you definitely want to make sure you're going slow for because your knife is making so much travel that it's easy for it to kind of get away from you and then you accidentally like cut off the tip of your knuckle. Nobody wants that. But once you're done, you should be left with this nice, beautiful shredded cabbage. Great in a salad, great in a stir fry, great on a sandwich, great with chicken, great with lots of things, in my personal opinion. But let's say that you were braising something or maybe doing a larger format stir fry and you wanted a little bit more cabbage in every bite. Well, all you have to do, again, cut out that core, but this time we're gonna go ahead and slice it into a half, technically it's an eighth, but slice it in half again, and then all we need to do is just chunk it up. Now we have these larger pieces that are great for braising, great for stir fries, great for lots of things. And this is an extra, this is a bonus, it's not really a cutting thing. If you're steaming dumplings, or really anything at all, take some cabbage leaves. This one's dripping, but take a whole cabbage leaf, not this one, wait for it. Take a whole cabbage leaf, well, that's good enough. Lay that down as your liner. This will help keeping things from sticking, as well as, be a natural way to do that thing, instead of like, paper. Okay, next up. I'm sorry guys, I'm still getting the hang of this whole YouTube thing. One day, I won't suck. Cucumbers. Now when I think of cucumbers, I think of two things exclusively. Salads and a vessel for dip. But if I'm putting it in a salad, this is how I would cut it. I'd start by slicing off the tip, as well as the butt, then I'd very carefully slice it in half. Oop, that's not even. Rule number one, broken. Then I would use a spoon to go ahead and carve out all those seedy, wet insides. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want my salad to be soggy and gross. And as you can tell, there's a lot of wetness in the center of a cucumber. So if we remove that, it'll stay nice and crunchy versus wet and soggy. Once they're hollowed out, I'll go ahead and just thinly slice them into little half moons and then stare you directly in the eye. That way we'll have these nice crunchy bits of cucumber in every bite. Now for the dip vessel. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Similar to what we would do for a pickle. We're gonna cut off the tips. Then we're gonna try one more time to cut it evenly down the center. Not bad. Cut those in half. And then one by one, we're gonna cut them going all the way around the sun. This will leave us with these beautiful cucumber sticks that are perfect for dipping. Now I promise that if you just follow those 3 simple rules and you trust yourself and you give yourself some grace, that you will be able to cut whatever vegetable for whatever dish you want. I promise. Now thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it and I really hope that you learned something. Here's a photo of me and Goose when we adopted him, and I'll see you next week. You jump? You just gonna sit? Okay, bye. Say bye and thank you.